Welcome back! Today we're starting fresh in Satisfactory, but this time I demand nothing less than perfect efficiency. My time's limited, so while I do want a clean and beautiful factory, I'll also be putting all the great advice that I've been giving you for months to the test, and hopefully not repeating any of my old mistakes, all in the name of efficiency. To keep things tight, I'll be cutting off the grind and skipping straight to the good stuff. That's the plan anyway, we'll see how it actually goes. In this first episode, we're building a beautiful spaghetti mess, completing the first stage of the space elevator, and as you've probably noticed, I'm starting in the rocky desert. And yes, I skipped the drop sequence, we're not doing tier 0 this time, it didn't exactly align with my efficiency plan. First order of business, find a good source of iron near some copper and set up my hub nearby. I hit the scanner and start looking for a nice open spot that has both iron and copper and head towards it. Oh, and lucky for me, I meet my first lizard doggo. I tried to tame it, but apparently it only goes for berries. These nuts I brought don't seem to impress it. Moving on, I spot a crash site along the way, but when I reach it, I find it's guarded by a few boars, who politely disagreed with my settlement plans. We work it out eventually. I'm planning to go heavy on alternate recipes this run, and that means I need to start collecting hard drives early, but sadly the pod needs rotors, I'll have to come back later. Luckily I don't leave empty-handed, there are tons of useful materials scattered all across, and since update 1.1 I can actually disassemble the pods for extra loot. I find the spot I was looking for, with a few iron and copper nodes. Perfect, except it's guarded by the vicious ball of death fly spawning nightmare. I hate those things. Luckily, I remember the game has stealth, so I crouch towards it and beat it with my glowing death stick. If you build enough momentum, you can actually slide jump very close to them while maintaining stealth. So, problem solved. Now I can set up my hub. Next, I drop a few miners on the iron and copper nodes and set up some quick constructors for iron plates and wire. Gotta get started on that first milestone somehow. For now, I'm just stuffing leaves into my hub generators. I will eventually automate biomass and biofuel, but I'm way too impatient to get things rolling. But surprise surprise, what I really needed was concrete. Yeah, totally forgot about that. It's been a while since I've played this early stage of the game. Fortunately, there's some limestone nearby. I throw a few miners on it and slap down a constructor to make concrete. But wow, I didn't realize how slow it was. So instead of sitting around twiddling my thumbs, I resort to handcrafting. Turns out it's way faster. And just like that, milestone 1 complete, only 41 to go. Now, manually feeding ore into smelters, yeah, that's not gonna cut it. Time to start automating. But at this stage, production is painfully slow, and scaling up is putting serious strain on my 2 leaf power hub generators. So, my next goal, set up proper biofuel generators. If you remember, in one of my early videos, I showcased a nice semi-automatic biofuel setup. Do make sure to check it out if you haven't already. To get there though, I need to skip ahead to unlocking obstacle clearing, which is kind of a grind since it's found in the second tier of the milestones. After spaghetting my way to finally complete the milestone, and yes, spaghetting is officially a word now, I realize I forgot something critical: logistics. No splitter, no setup. Oh well, back to handcrafting some more materials. I set up storage containers for all my parts, get a dedicated wire line going, and start prepping for biofuel again. But when I come back to check on the progress, tragedy strikes. I forgot to hook up the machines. No wires were produced and most of what was made got turned into cables. That's alright, I said, at least I have my iron bars. But I totally missed the fact that I was only producing 15 per minute, and also using some of them for screws, which I'm not even using. Okay, handcrafting it is then. I did hook up the machines correctly this time, and I increased the iron bar production, but there was a lot of handcrafting involved. Eventually I fixed everything, hook up the machines properly and boost my iron bar production. After way too much manual labor, I finally got my biofuel setup running, complete with merger and splitters. It looks a bit messy, but you see, as long as I call it my starter setup, it's totally acceptable. Now to get working on the main objective, building my space elevator. Not so fast though, the elevator won't help much if I don't have the parts to put inside, so instead of hoarding materials for something I can't even use yet, I decide to upscale my production and keep pushing through the milestone tree. Efficiency, remember? First I need a lot more concrete, building directly on sand is annoying, so I head to the next limestone patch. It's a bit further, but close enough to build back to the hub. While setting up my miner, I find the free power slug, ripe for the taking. That could prove useful at this early stage of the game. I hook everything up, but realize all my outputs fit into one container. A bit of quick math tells me I'm already exceeding the build capacity, but there's nothing I can do now. I need Mark II belts to fix it. Hopefully I won't forget about it. For now, I just keep adding constructors, splitters and generators to handle the growing power needs. Then I check on the concrete to start laying down some foundations, just to get some sense of normalcy in this godforsaken spaghetti nightmare. I want to build my standard smelter setup and move production onto foundations, but I hit the same wall, slow builds. So instead of making it better, I just make it bigger. Yeah, even more spaghetti. But hear me out, it's still the most efficient way. And I will explain exactly why in a little bit, but for now, you'll just have to trust me. Eventually I grind my way to Logistics Mark II, which finally removes the old belt bottleneck. With upgraded Mark II belts in place, I start stockpiling resources for my next big step. At this point, I'm really tired of the mess, so I start planning a proper factory. This time I'm going with a main bus design, a system I used successfully back in my Factorio days. I've heard people say it's not great in Satisfactory, but I want to try it out for myself. The downside, you end up transporting resources you don't need all the way down the line, and throughput can become a nightmare. But hey, you're not bound to the traditional rules. I'm sure we can find a way to make it work efficiently. A quick look at the terrain and world grid setup shows I've built too close to a cliff. I'll need more space for the bus to expand, so I plan to shift the main factory over there a little bit more to the left, with assembly lines on each side. It's too early to polish anything, but I start placing constructors roughly where I'll need them, leaving space in the center for the main bus. The goal is to build a new factory and eventually move production over there. And of course, just as I'm getting into the flow, boom, fuse blown. Turns out my biofuel's out again. So back to chopping trees and gathering leaves to keep the generators alive. Finishing the initial setup is a grind. I have to duplicate everything and line it up carefully to avoid backing myself into a corner, like I've said in one of my previous videos. And sure enough, a few minutes later, boom, fuse blown again. More chainsawing, more biofuel, rinse and repeat. But after a few rounds, everything's finally running in the new factory. Finally, I have enough materials to build the space elevator, but the 50 smart plates are a whole different story. Smart plating requires rotors and reinforced iron plates, and those take ages to make. And of course my new factory setup isn't working quite right. It turns out I have fed the wrong input in my iron rod factory. I have used iron plate instead of ingots. Quick fix, but then I realized I'm not producing enough ingots either. So I redirect the belt from one of the miners into the new smelter setup to compensate. Just when I think I've got it, I hit another snag. The new belts can't keep up. Cue another round of upgrades, a pile of reinforced plates gone. Right about now, I'm starting to doubt my decision to spread the factory so thin. But what's done is done, and honestly, this had to be done. Lessons learned from the first playthrough. I want to automate smart plating cleanly, but reality hits. I simply don't have the resources and time to do this. So maybe there's a lesson here. Remember when I said spaghetti was more efficient? Well, what I meant was, it's not worth obsessing over perfect design too early. When your resources start, it's better to keep things easy to rebuild by placing them roughly where you know they'll end up, rather than making everything pretty. So I spaghetti some screws, plates and rods across the area to set up a quick automated smart plating factory. And now it's just a 10-minute wait. While I've got some time to kill, I go gather some more firewood, take a stroll around the base and cut down a few trees. This time I run some belts closer to the hub and set up containers to feed wood and leaves automatically into the generators. Still waiting, so I pop into the MAM for some research. Apparently I can't progress the alien megafauna tree. Weird bug? Nope. Looks like I have to complete every node now to move forward. Pretty sure that wasn't the case before. Anyway, before I go spider hunting, I realize I've got plenty of mycelia, so I unlock the parachute. If you've seen my tips video, you'll know how handy that is for cliff exploration. Off I go. I found a spitter, grab that sample, and then stumble across a cave. And what lives in caves? You guessed it, spiders. Perfect. After that little detour, I check the time. It's been a while. I head back, grab my smart plates, finish the quick MEM research and finally load them into the space elevator. With that, we launch into phase 2 of the game, and that's where we'll pick up next time, so don't miss it.